अस्सलाम वालेकुम एवरीवन। इस लेक्चर के बीच में हम डिस्कस करेंगे सेल एंड एग्रीमेंट टू सेल। व्हाट इज सेल एंड व्हाट इज एन एग्रीमेंट टू सेल? Relevant provisions are Section 2 and Section 4 of the Sale of Goods Act 1930. First comes sale. Section 4 subclause C defines sale as where under contract of sale the property in the goods is transferred from the seller to the buyer. The contract is called sale. So in a contract of sale where the property in the goods, meaning thereby the ownership of the goods, transfers from seller to the buyer, the contract is called sale. So in a contract of sale, the ownership of the property transfers from seller to the buyer. Agreement to sell, where the transfer of the property in the goods is to take place at a future time or subject to some condition thereafter to be fulfilled, the contract is called an agreement to sell. So, unlike sale, in an agreement to sell, the property does not transfer from seller to the buyer. In an agreement to sell, property transfers at a future time or subject to some condition. So, an agreement to sell is a step before the completion of sale. And the term contract of sale, which is used in the foregoing provision, it starts from an agreement to sell and it completes at sale. So once the parties enter into an agreement to sell, meaning that by once they decide to execute a sale at a future time or subject to some condition, the contract of sale begins. And once that contract of sale, once that sale is executed, once that sale is completed and the property is transferred from seller to the buyer, the contract of sale completes. What are the essentials of an agreement to sell? Parties, seller and the buyer, then agreement between the parties. There should be an agreement between the parties to complete a sale at a future time and passing of property at a future time. That property, according to that agreement, the property which is subject matter of sale is to transfer from seller to the buyer at a future time. Let's take an example of it. And A agrees to purchase B's car for rupees 10 lakh conditionally if B helps A to complete a business deal with C. Is it a sale or agreement to sell? Answer, it's an agreement to sell because it involves the fulfillment of a prior condition before the transaction takes place. It becomes a sale when the transfer of property takes place against the money consideration of rupees 10 lakh, meaning thereby where once they agree upon selling the car, selling the property, selling the car at a future time, this is an agreement to sell. And once the car is sold, the ownership of the car transfers from the seller to the buyer, the sale completes. This is a case law in which it was said that where the transfer of the property and the goods is to take place at a future time or subject to some condition thereafter to be fulfilled, the contract is called an agreement to sell. So, essentials of sale. There are parties, there is a contract of sale between them, they agree upon a price of the property, and the transfer of property transfers from seller to the buyer in a contract of sale. So uh, in order to constitute a sale, the parties must reach on an agreement with regard to the price, uh, on what price the property is being sold and what is the manner of payment of that price. It is not essential for the completion of sale that the whole of the price is paid immediately to the parties. The price can be paid in future. Part of the price or whole of the even whole of the price can be paid in future, but uh, at least there should be a consensus. There should be a decision, an agreement between the parties with regard to the price. However, what is essential to constitute a sale is the transfer of property. Once the sale is executed, the ownership of the goods transfers from seller to the buyer. Whether the price is yet paid or not is immaterial, but the ownership will transfer from seller to the buyer. We should try to understand the transaction of sale with the help of this illustration. It says a dealer in electronics gives a television to a customer on the terms that rupees 5,000 should be paid by him immediately and rupees 2,000 each in monthly installments of 6 months. The dealer reserves no right over the sold television. The customer makes default in paying the last installment. Can the electronic dealer take back the television on his default? The answer to this proposition is the electronic dealer cannot take back the television on default by the customer because the sale has already taken place and the property has been transferred from seller to the buyer. Electronic dealer can file the suit for recovery of remaining amount of price. So, because when the television was sold by the shopkeeper to the customer, he did not reserve any right over the property. He does not reserve any right over that television. So he has no right left over the property. Yes, the only right which is left is to recover the outstanding payment. He becomes an unpaid seller, and being an unpaid seller, he can exercise all those rights which belong to an unpaid seller. So once the property is sold out, whether or not the payment is made in accordance with the agreement, property cannot revert back to the seller. There is a case law. The word sale in its legal sense imports passing of property in the goods, although in the particular sense it signifies the transaction itself, which results the passing of property. So, in whole of sale of goods, where you come across the term passing of property or transfer of property, these two terms connote the meaning transfer of ownership. So, once the ownership is transferred from seller to the buyer, there can be no reversal to it. They cannot be reversed because the transaction of sale has already completed. Gap between agreement to sell and sale is an agreement to sell becomes a sale when the time elapses or the conditions are fulfilled, subject to which the property in the goods is to be transferred. Time and condition mentioned in section 4, subclass 3. That's end of this lecture. In the next lecture, we shall discuss the difference between sale and agreement to sell. Thank you.